Alert follow-up tonight. The South Dakota Secretary of State is issuing a statement regarding the Department of Justice sending election monitors to 4 South Dakota counties. In a statement to the DOJ, the Secretary of State, Monet Johnson, says the monitors are to be considered as poll observers and to be treated the same as any member of the public. Johnson states that South Dakota law says DOJ employees are not authorized to act as poll watchers, meaning they can't interfere with the duties of poll workers. On Friday, the DOJ announced they would be in 4 South Dakota counties, including Minnehaha, to monitor election compliance, such as voter intimidation and the equal opportunity to vote.